I don't do the most, but I do a lot. I'ma make a toast, cause we still alive. No big, I feel like Pac. I shoot a shot. I'm coming in hot.
Hey, and we're coming in hot. That's right. We got Mr. Andrew Muller on the phone with us. Oh, you might remember Andrew. He comes on every once in a while with me and likes to play ball with some of the stuff that's going on. He is the operations guy over at the Liberty Sentinel, Alex Newman. Actually, we're going to be hearing from Alex on Wednesday. I'm very excited to have him on. But the precursor, the warm-up man, the guy, the pitch man, the front man, well, not the front man, the behind-the-scenes man, Mr. Andrew Muller joins us now. Andrew, how are you doing today?
Oh, I can't complain, Ryan. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I am doing bigly. Today is a bigly day with all of the news, and that's why we were going back and forth, and I was like, why don't you just come on the show, and let's talk about a few of these things, because there is a lot to consider, and one of the biggies, I know that we've been talking about back and forth a lot, is J.D. Vance is the vice presidential choice that Trump was going to lay down here. He's been dragging everyone along just by the threads of media mogul success. That man is good at getting people wound up over stuff without actually letting anyone in on it. But here we are. We finally hit it today. So I certainly want to get your take on maybe some of the things that happened this weekend, what that means, the consequences we have moving forward. But of course, the vice presidential choice, I think it matters more this year than in some other years. What's your hot take on it? What are your top thoughts?
Well, Ryan, it wasn't my number one pick. J.D. Vance was. But, it's okay. I think that he's going to be good. I don't think he's going to ruin the Trump administration, Lord willing, if President Trump gets to serve a second term. My main concern about J.D. Vance was just, track record and observable history. He's only been senator for 2 years. He's had a very short term in the Senate. So we haven't been able to see too much, but according to his Freedom Index, which is a resource of the New American Magazine, he has an 80% on the Freedom Index when it comes to his voting record compared to the Constitution. And the only reason they gave him an 80% and not 100 or a 90 or something else that's better is because 3 particular votes he did, which was he voted for the appropriations minibus bill, which was not a good thing, of course. He voted against spending reductions. Of course, we want spending reductions. And he voted for a federal firefighter grant bill. So these are things, of course, that I would be against. I wish he wouldn't have voted for the minibus bill. I wish he wouldn't have voted for unconstitutional spending according to Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. But these aren't, issues where he's voting, for pro-choice, pro-abortion legislation. He's not voting to destroy the Second Amendment or to prohibit freedom of speech, or he's not, supporting various things that are against the principles of conservatism and constitutionalism on a larger scale. So I don't look at that and say, oh, well, he's absolute trash. So I was hoping for Vivek Ramaswamy or for somebody who had a little bit more of a articulate, thoughtful, really cutting approach that could give this country a future vision for what it means to be an American. J.D. Vance could maybe surprise us and be that. But ultimately, Ryan, I don't think this is a bad pick. It's just not what it could have been.
Well, no, that begs an interesting question. And this is why I love talking with you, because this is, in my opinion, the kind of thoughtful stuff that conservatives ought to be talking about with each other, especially the grassroots, as we continue to grow in, grow in influence across many state parties and a big structure, especially under the Trump administration, the first one. And now the second one that's coming, we have done that. But you mentioned, J.D. Vance has only been in for a couple of years. He's a little unknown, untested. You just named Vivek as someone you may have liked more. Vivek is totally untested. He's never been in public office before. I'm just kind of curious, how do you square that, or whether there's another positive that outweighed that potential negative? Where's that going to come from?
So I think with Vivek, the reason I do, concede that wholly, that Vivek has no political history. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump had no political history as well. But the thing about Vivek is that he's very specific about limiting the size and scope of the federal government, particularly when it comes to funding the government and giving money to endless wars. He's really made that a hard campaign point when he ran for president, and even still afterwards in his campaign to get Donald Trump elected. So I think that Vivek would have a stronger stance, from what I can tell, on not voting to give more money to these agencies like the CIA, the FBI, through these spending bills that are just growing and consuming not only our liberties but our money. And does J.D. Vance approve of that? Probably not. I don't think he does. But I wasn't encouraged when I saw that he'd voted for those things in the past. So the reason I like Vivek, and I think that there's a distinction there, is that Vivek has made that really a big point that has brought him to prominence, is no, we are not going to fund any of these agencies. We're not going to fund foreign wars through the passing of these military bills and the spending bills. We are going to stop that until we right these wrongs and quit making perpetual errors. So for that reason, I like Vivek Ramaswamy and think he would be a great choice. But a lot of people, Ryan, are saying that Vivek might fill J.D. Vance's Senate seat in Ohio.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you.
Yeah. And would then allow us to see, hey, how's Vivek going to vote on these issues? And then maybe that's a consideration next time around in 2028.
I'm seeing that as a high possibility people are talking about. Obviously, they're both Ohio brethren, and there certainly could be a very interesting mix there. Well, and let me ask you this. So one of the big things I see from a lot of folks, J.D. Vance is not MAGA enough for a lot of people. And admittedly, and he admitted it, he had some pretty nasty things to say. Now, honestly, I've gone back through every single one of these, and none of them were particularly gross and out of proportion or unfortunate. He was not a fan of Donald Trump, though. 2015, 16, even 17, just starting in, he was not a fan. He had even called himself at one point, somewhat never Trump. I'd never like him, he said. He even made a comment at one point about, I might even have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary. Although he, of course, came back later and said, I didn't vote for Hillary. I didn't vote for Trump either, though, because I didn't feel it. But he came back with many things. No, 2020, I at that point knew I was wrong. Donald Trump's administration was fantastic. I want more. We need more. I feel like his criticisms were not over the top, like some people we've seen, the Lincoln Project crowd, who are just terrible and not conservative at all. They are the establishment hacks that you've heard about. I feel like his conversion, though, it seems like there really is a reform of, okay, I was wrong, and also the game has changed, looking at the deep state and what has been revealed. Do you have any sense of that? Was that never a worry for you, or what's your take? Because I know that's something for a lot of people. That is their sticking point, why they don't trust J.D. Vance, and rightly so. He's changed his mind. So is it real or not?
I don't know if it's real or not. Time will tell if that's true. Certainly it seems like he's had a switch. I'll reveal my cards. I'm a young man, Ryan. I'm 22. So back in 2016, you can do the math. I was young. I did not like Trump at the beginning during the primaries. I liked Ben Carson. I bopped around a little bit. Ultimately, I liked Trump by the time the election came around. I understand this flip mentality that happens to people, and I recognize it. Vance has said a couple ugly things, though. I do think he said ugly things. He said, my God, what an idiot about Trump. He said that Trump could be America's next Hitler. So he said a few things that I think are not good. They're definitely bad press now that you're the guy's VP a few years later. But I do think he could have had an honest change of heart, and I definitely hope for the sake of the ticket and for the sake of the administration that that's true. My big concern here, Ryan, is not necessarily what his vice presidency is going to be like. I think that Donald Trump is going to have good people around him. I think it's going to be tough to, from within, hopefully mess up this administration. I hope that they're going to have the best people around him as possible. I'm just not super sure about what 2028 looks like, because that's been a huge discussion for everybody. Whoever Trump picks might be his heir apparent, and I just don't know if J.D. Vance is that guy. Time will tell. But I do think that this was a real missed opportunity. When we go back and we look at 2016, we saw with Mike Pence, he was this moral compass that maybe wasn't a fully moral compass later down the road, but he really offset a lot of concerns people had. And I was hoping that we would get somebody who was just perfect for the time, who was perfect for 2028, who could articulate issues, who could also get more votes for Trump potentially. And I think Vivek Ramaswamy would have done a great job at that. Ultimately, like I said, I don't think Vance is going to be harmful, but I don't think it's everything that it could be. But another good consideration, Ryan, is a lot of people, the right people, are angry about this. Mm-hmm. The media is very upset about Vance. They think he's, a bad pick. They're saying he's this, that, and the other. Biden, of course, came out and attacked Vance as per expected, and a lot of good people are very happy with this. Charlie Kirk has come out and been in full endorsement of this. Glenn Beck has. Even Alex Jones came out and said that this was a good idea. So a lot of people are rallying around Vance. That comforts me. So ultimately, I do think this is a good thing, not a bad thing. I'm just wondering, this is something where the sky was the limit. Could we have done better?
Well, and I mean, you bring up an interesting point there for a lot of us who we kind of have question marks. So what about Vance? What about Vance? I saw that Tucker had a big speech today. He was at the Heritage, a Heritage event, and he's at the RNC. I think it's tonight. I forget what the speaking schedule is, but looking forward to that. But he made a comment. He had a couple of minutes where he said, often the negative case is much more convincing even than the positive. And he said, I could talk to you about J.D. Vance, but let me tell you what I do know. Every single terrible person that I have ever met in Washington, D.C. was making the case against J.D. Vance and can't stand him. That tells me something. And I think we've seen that today. I saw, there are several people who are having public meltdowns about how this is a bad decision. Karl Rove, who of course endorsed Doug Burgum a few days ago. Karl Rove is having a little bit of a meltdown. Rupert Murdoch is having a meltdown. John Bolton's throwing a bit of a hissy fit. There are definitely the right people who seem to be very upset about this. And I mean, what that tells me, good. I'd say good. Maybe this is the right choice. I'm sure they would have an even bigger meltdown with someone like Vivek, who's not even a known entity inside the political world. But you hit on it right there. There are a lot of very upset about JD people, and they are the right people in my mind. So
yeah, I couldn't agree.
Yeah, we'll see. Let me turn just a minute though. What in the world do you think is going to happen? Let me put it this way. How excited are you to watch the vice presidential debate now? J.D. Vance versus Kamala Harris?
Yeah, we'll be interesting to see if Kamala's even there.
That's it. Now there you go. My next question. And as we approach the end of a break, you might need to stick around with us so we can hit it, because we haven't even gotten to the Trump thing this weekend. What do you think, though? Just your quick thought, because we've kind of gone over and over this, and I don't think there's much more news until we get past the RNC. Biden, Democrats are coming for him, yes or no? Is it all a manufactured campaign to make him look like an underdog? Are they really trying to get rid of him? What's your hot take on what's going on there? What do you think is happening?
I think that there's panic in the party, there's division in the party, and they don't know what to do. There's a group with a plan. They want to get Biden out. I think it's harder for them to do that than they expected. They're running out of time. If they let Biden go through the Democrat convention, I think they're really toast. They'll either have to run him or they'll have to come to terms with losing the election. But I do think all the while, if you want to talk about the deep state, they are preparing for a Donald Trump presidency, and they are preparing to undermine a Donald Trump presidency by any means necessary and then come back in 2028 with a vengeance. They don't have to win the 2024 election to accomplish what they want to accomplish, because they're expecting us to feel like we won and go home and be complacent. If Trump wins, we have to work even harder, because they are going to try to undermine it. And I think that's probably their best bet at this point, because they're running out of time.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct there, that we have what is definitely known is that they are bracing for another Trump administration, for a second Trump term. And I think that we know that at this point, I would hope Trump is wiser for it, and we walk in with fewer problems in the cabinet, fewer problems in his staff than we had the first time. I think we can only hope that that would be better to begin with. And boy, may he be a formidable force there, because I don't know. I keep seeing all of the supposed infighting. Democrats don't infight anymore. They are all so lockstep with the party plan that I don't believe Biden is some sort of independent, or even Jill and Hunter, some sort of independent force that wants to maintain power, and they don't want to go in with the party plan. They're all bought and paid for. I mean, I think all of us think this, but that's what it seems like. They're all bought and paid for. But here, let me do this. I want to get to another topic, but I know we have a break we're going to hit here. So Andrew, are you able to stay around with us on the other side for just a couple more minutes?
You bet.
Awesome. We'll be right back, folks. We're going to take a quick break on The Reckoning. Don't miss out. Last few minutes, last segment coming on the Real Talk Radio Network. You're on The Reckoning.
Some nights I stay up, cashing in my bad luck.
Hey, we're back on the final segment here of The Reckoning. You're on the Real Talk Radio Network. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. And we have kept over Mr. Andrew Muller. I had a couple more things I wanted to bounce off of him before we let him go, so he's just going to ride it out with us. He's stuck with us now. I'm kidding. I mean, he could hang up at any point, but he wouldn't do that because we're going to have a lot of fun still. Still coming up, One thing, Andrew, I didn't get to, of course, the vice presidential debate is going to be exciting, whatever it is. I know that CBS offered a debate on the 23rd or August 13th. The Trump campaign didn't reject the invitation, but they accepted a Fox News invite for the VP face-off. But I saw the news here, Politico reporting. So obviously it's gospel because Politico said so. But VP Harris apparently left a message for J.D. Vance. He didn't answer the phone. She congratulated him on being selected as the running mate and that her hope they can meet at the debate. But the fun thing, she said earlier last month, what we know, she said, this is the most coherent sentence I've seen. Maybe it's just because it's in writing. What we know is that Donald Trump wants an enabler. He doesn't want a governing partner. He doesn't want another Mike Pence, and I think that is clear. Well, I would say that he's picked a pretty darn independent voice based on past comments from J.D. Vance. He's not necessarily just got a yes man. Maybe you could make that case because he's reformed a little bit on his Trump perspective, but I think that we've got some interesting independence here, especially from a young guy who already has his own following, and it is definitely separate from Trump, I would say. But we'll see. We'll see about that. So let me dive in here. Sorry, go ahead. Do you have anything to say? Do you have any response to that, or was that just my enjoyment of it?
Well, no, one last final thing, Ryan. I don't know if people watch the live streams on social media to see your very stately face, but, J.D. Vance is very similar to Ryan Haidt. He's 39 years old. He's the first millennial on a major party presidential ticket, and he's got a beard.
That's right.
I mean, these are all very interesting elements.
Trump has actually complained about his beardedness before because Trump doesn't like facial hair. It's ironic considering how much hair he has up top, but I'm not here to point fingers. Or follicles. I'm not here to point follicles, but I'm excited about the beardedness in the White House. We were trading pictures back and forth. You start photoshopping a beard on Trump. If Vance talks him into this, we've got like an old school general look going on here, some seasoned war veteran. It could get really exciting really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Trump doesn't have a beard, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Trump may not have a beard, but he's also missing a piece of an ear. As the reports go, although it's been under a patch as far as we've seen. I guess we'll see what that looks like later this week when he is out and about at the convention. Boy, this weekend, I mean, for the first time in your lifetime and mine, a true assassination attempt, an almost success on a sitting or former president of the United States, or a presidential candidate for that matter. I was in shock of what I was watching this weekend. It took a lot to process and unfold what was happening, to try to look at and see at what was going on. There are still more questions than answers. I know there's a lot of conspiracy, some of which very good questions that demand answering and accountability now, but also a lot of stuff circulating far faster than people have had a chance to look it up because a lot of it's too far-fetched. What's your take on what happened, what we saw this weekend, and maybe what the next steps are? Because there must be changes or lessons learned from this. At least that's my opinion after this assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. Andrew?
Yeah, a few things. I mean, first of all, I was in a record store in Florida looking around and my phone started blowing up and people are saying Trump was shot. I didn't know if he was okay or not. Started praying. I was so relieved to see that he was spared. I believe God spared him. When you watch these videos of him turning his head at the last minute looking at that chart, it's obvious that he was just not even to say he was an inch away from death, I think is a liberal, not close enough. It was way less than an inch. I mean, this was like as close as you could get to death, and he survived it. So I'm convinced that God's hand was on him. We haven't seen anything like this since Ronald Reagan had an attempt on his life in 1981. But really, Ryan, ultimately what I hope comes out of this is I hope that Donald Trump recognizes that he was protected by God, that he was preserved by God, and that God has a plan for him on this earth. Personally and in the political place that he is in. I hope that Donald Trump comes to a place of further repentance in Jesus Christ and has a renewed understanding to double down in his commitment to Christ. And it was interesting, Ryan, I was looking at Ronald Reagan's autobiography, An American Life, and Ronald Reagan said this about when he had an assassination attempt. He said, quote, "Perhaps having some so close to death made me feel I should do whatever I could in the years God had given me to reduce the threat of nuclear war." And he ended up doing that. He felt so grateful that God had given him a second chance at life that he felt like he had to do the best he could and make the most out of the rest of the years God had given him. I pray that for President Trump, that this was just a wake-up call for him, that God is real, that he is involved in the affairs of men, and that he needs to, and the people around him need to get on their knees and seek God, because I truly believe God could turn this nation around, but he's not going to do it unless we turn our face away from evil, look to him, repent of our ways, and ask for his forgiveness and for his direction. And I hope that President Trump will do that. I think that this also gives him a great opportunity to get support. I think that we've seen support from this. I had multiple people message me and say, I've had friends who are more on the liberal side or at least politically quiet. And now they're saying, you know what? Yeah, I'm voting for Trump, because they see not only the verbal attacks, not only the illegal attacks, but now the physical attacks on Donald Trump. And I think that he couldn't have handled this better. I do hope that at the RNC, he comes out with a message of hope in Jesus Christ and recognizing, not just a fight mentality, which we need to have, but also a pray mentality, that this is really just confirmed and reawakened his senses to God and his work in this world.
Yeah, you got it. You are absolutely right, and I can't think of a better note to end on. I'm excited to hear the reports that he scrapped his speech and might be doing it all over again. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us this last half hour. I appreciate it so much.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you all. We got a lot looking forward to this week. I'll be back tomorrow at 4. Mark Levin's going to take over on into the evening. Don't miss out on a moment of it, because we have a lot to talk about, folks. I'll see you back here tomorrow on The Reckoning